let me welcome Jijin Nalmuri sir to deliver his class. Thank you.
Yeah, so I think everybody have here have gone through the previous two classes, which are fundamental to the further steps and further sessions in the class. So as a recap, we have very detailed described about the 10 mandalas of Ṛgveda and which are the oldest, which are the youngest. So that information we have very clearly described in the previous session. So that sessions are very important for proceeding further with more information. But if anybody is in the class in this session, who have not listened to the previous two sessions in the last 2 weeks, they can easily go through the book Rivers of Ṛgveda if they have purchased and go through the 2 chapters in the book, and it is our sessions are more or less 95% aligning with the chapters in the book Rivers of Ṛgveda, so they can just follow through that. And today, after the first introductory session and the session on the chronological sequencing of the Ṛgvedic mandalas, today we are focusing on the kings or the chief or the Ṛgvedic patrons. The patrons are the people who are sustaining the rishis, and they are the people who support the ecosystem. So, for example, if you look at today's today we have the elected representative in the elected representatives who are in the parliament or in the legislative assemblies, or we to put like a different manner, we have organizations who conduct cultural programs, universities like Calcutta University, and many other like agencies and organizations that support cultural activities. So the Ṛgvedic patrons are of the similar nature. So they are the people who support the Ṛgvedic ecosystem by providing all the sustenance, all the wealth and resources for conducting yajnas, and giving some kind of support system for the rishis, who are basically inspired poets who compose the Ṛgvedic hymns to praise the Ṛgvedic devatas and invoke the devatas for getting blessings, both for the rishis as well as for the kings, who are the Ṛgvedic patrons, whose wealth and whose support is used for sustaining the yajnas, extensive rituals, and other support systems. So that is the role played by the patrons, and they were basically kings ruling certain localities in the Ṛgvedic land, watered by river Saraswati, Yamuna, Ganga, or Sindhu river, or the tributaries of Sindhu like Parushni, Sikni, Vidasta, or Marivrata. So that is the kind of environment. That is the kind of environment somewhere in Haryana and Punjab, both the Pakistan Indian side of Punjab. So these are the regions where these kings ruled, and of course the western side of the Uttar Pradesh. So this is the area where the Ṛgvedic kings ruled. And again, I make an observation. This is the same area where you have the Harappan cities, exactly in the Haryana, Punjab region, and somewhat to the western side of western Uttar Pradesh. So when you look at from the Ṛgvedic perspective, the Ṛgvedic patrons were residing in the region precisely where the Harappan cities are located. And this is another important information that help us to understand that the Harappan civilization and the Ṛgvedic civilization are not two different things, but they are the same thing. And because of the same reason, we have to, based on the logical analysis and the geographical analysis, we have to say that there was no particular Aryan invasion, but basically the people were indigenous living in the Harappan cities, and those people who are living in the Harappan cities were reflected in the Ṛgveda as the Ṛgvedic patrons. So this much is an introduction, and then let me go through the slides here. As I said, this is the background of the Ṛgvedic patterns, and there are so many of them. If you look at the appendix section of my book, Rivers of Rigveda, I am listing around 400 plus Ṛgvedic kings, and some of them may be chiefs. So whichever term we can use, Raja or Adhyaksha. So any of the word they are fitting to those kind of words. Like they were heads of the some group of people. So they are Raja, king, or chiefs. So if you look at the entire lineage of the Ṛgvedic kings, we have to rely upon some support from the Itihasa Puranas to make sense of it, because Ṛgveda is a very discontinuous set of information. So it is not providing you with a very direct, very straightforward lineage list, etc. But based on the oldest references within Ṛgveda itself, so for example, in the oldest mandalas, some people are mentioned as older than the oldest mandala. So that means even in the oldest Ṛgvedic mandalas, like 6th mandala, they were mentioned as very ancient people who lived many years ago. So that is the kind of information we get from about certain people in Ṛgveda. And once you go through the names of these people, we understand from the Itihasa Puranas, because they are very familiar names. Like for example, the name Aditi, that is mentioned in Ṛgveda, and the name Vivasvat is mentioned in Ṛgveda. Manu is mentioned. Ikshvaku is there. Trikshi. Then Ila, Pururavas. The king's name Pururavas is mentioned in Ṛgveda. Ayus mentioned. Nahusha, Yayati. And the many other names like Yadu, Turvasa, Drupyu, Anu, and Puru, which Bharata, for example, Kushika. These names are mentioned in Ṛgveda directly. And since the people are very familiar with the Itihasa Puranas compared to Ṛgveda, when you encounter these names, our attention, we get a very high attention. Oh, I know this name, and it is mentioned in Ṛgveda. So we have a lot of familiar names which are mentioned in the Itihasa Puranas, also found in Ṛgveda. And then we chronologically arrange the names based on how they are mentioned and where they are mentioned. So two points, how they are mentioned, because you can some of the kings or people are mentioned in some text and they are mentioned as contemporary. That means see, for example, they are mentioned in 6th mandala, and when you read the suttas or the rigs, you understand they are mentioned in present tense. That means they are living right now. That means during the period of 6th mandala, they were living. Their lifetime was when the 6th mandala was authored. That is when they lived. So some example are like Dibodasa, the king named Dibodasa, Pradardana, like some names. They are contemporary to the 6th mandala. But some other names like Yayati or Aditi or Vivasvat, Manu, or Ila, Pururavas, Ayu, or Nahusha, all these names, even in the 6th mandala or or even some other places in the Ṛgveda, they are mentioned as living very ancient period. So once you sequence it, like people mentioned in 6th mandala and mentioned as in present tense, such living contemporary to 6th mandala, and some people mentioned in 6th mandala but mentioned as living earlier than 6th mandala, that they are in past tense. They were living some many years ago. We don't know how many years ago, but they were living in remote past. So like that, we can sequence the people, names of the people, and we more or less get kind of a sequence like this. Of course, with cross comparison with the Itihasa Puranas. So we have the oldest figure as Aditi, and Aditi's son Vivasvat, and Vivasvat we consider as a sun god Surya Devata, and Vivasvat's son Manu. So this is how the sequence goes. Aditi, Vivasvat, like that. So we have after Manu, then we have Ila, and then we have Pururavas. Pururavas, then Pururavas son Ayus, Ayus son Nahusha, Nahusha son Yayati. So this kind of a sequence that we will be able to come across. And compared to the Itihasa Puranas, there are slight differences as well. For example, in the Itihasa Puranas, Ila is considered as directly mentioned as a daughter of Manu. But in case of Rigveda, that direct statement is not there. Ila is mentioned as a priestess. There is a Purohita, priestess of the Manavas. That is, all the children of Manu consider Ila as their Purohita, female priest. So that is how the Rigveda indicate Ila. But Rigveda also doesn't say that Ila is not the daughter of Manu. So we cannot say that Rigveda is opposing any information in Itihasa Puranas. But Rigveda is silent about whether the Ila is the daughter of Manu. But Rigveda very clearly mentioned Ila was the priestess, the Purohita of Manavas, that is the children of Manu. So that is how the slight variations that you get in the Rigvedic information compared to the Itihasa Puranas. And in the Rigveda, both the Manu as well as Yama are mentioned as the son of Vivasvat. And this is very much similar in the Itihasa Puranas. Yama is mentioned as Yama Vaivasvata. That is, Yama is the son of Vivasvat or the descendant of Vivasvat. And Manu is mentioned as Manu Vaivasvata. Manu is the son or descendant of Vivasvat. So this a lot of correlation and maybe some 5% variation you can see in the Rigveda. And Pururavas is mentioned as son of Ila. Even in Rigveda, it is correctly mentioned as son of Ila. And same thing is very correctly mentioned in the Mahabharata, Ramayana, and the Puranas. And Ayus as the son of Pururavas is very clearly mentioned in Rigveda, Itihasa Puranas. All the three texts agree. Ayus son Nahusha, every text agree about it. And Yayati as the son of Yayati Nahushya. So Yayati is the son of Nahusha, that is also clearly mentioned. And in the Rigveda, there are Panchajanas, 5 people. They are mentioned as Yadu, Purvasa, Draupyu, Anu, and Puru. And there is no direct mention that they were sons of Yayati. But in the Mahabharata, Ramayana, or the Puranas, very clearly mentioned the 5 sons of Yayati are Yadu, Purvasa, Draupyu, Anu, and Puru. So Panchajanas are mentioned as the children of Yayati. Rigveda doesn't make that statement directly, but since Yayati is mentioned as an ancient figure in the Rigveda, we can actually accept, okay, even though that direct information is missing, similar to what Itihasas and Puranas are saying, Yadu, Turvasa, Draupyu, and Anu, and Puru, the 5 principal like clans could be like emerging from Yayati. So that is how we can conclude. So this is the kind of structure, the lineage structure we get by cross comparison of the Rigvedic data with the Itihasa Puranic data. So this Panchajana is very important because the entire analysis of Rigveda, the direction of motion of the different clans, everything is based on that. So we accept, based on the Itihasa Puranic data, which is external to Rigveda, we accept that they were all descendants of Yayati. And from these Panchajanas, that is Yadu, Turvasa, Draupyu, Anu, and Puru, we got all the famous Chandravamsha dynasties emerging. So from Yadu we have Yadavas. From Turvasa we have Turvasas, but this tribe got assimilated by the rest of the tribes. So Turvasa kings, they were having some Turvasa kings are mentioned in Rigveda and very rarely in the Itihasa Puranas, but later, I mean, especially in the Itihasas, but later they got completely diluted. This particular clan got completely diluted, absorbed into the Yadavas and to the Anavas, etc. So they got completely disappeared. They got absorbed as the Yadavas and Anavas. I have a kind of a theory about Durvasa. Durvasa is a sage who have visited Dwaraka, who have visited Kunti. You know, that ascetic. So that name, the name Durvasa could be like kind of related to the Turvasa. So that is a kind of a theory, but it is not something which is attested, or direct statements are not there in the Itihasa Puranas or Vedas. But there is a possibility like that. But otherwise, the Turvasa lineage got completely melted away. Completely, it got absorbed into the Yadavas and the Anavas, etc. So, of course, the Anu tribe, their descendants are called the Anavas. And you see, they are very special because the Anavas who are mentioned as Anava in the Rigveda, they are mentioned slightly differently as Daitya Danavas, Daityas and Danavas in the Itihasa Puranas. So they are the Asuras, basically. So in the Puranas, we mentioned there are a group of people who are always opposed to the Devas. They fight with the Devas, and sometimes they win, sometimes they lose. And they are collectively called the Asuras, and specifically called as Daityas and Danavas. They are basically the descendants. They are the two branches of the Anava group. They got branched off into Daitya Danava, like that. And we have the Puru lineage. And the Puru lineage is very famous. Anybody who have familiarity with Mahabharata know what is Puru lineage. That is one of the ancestral lineage of the Bharatas. And the Bharata lineage, of course, the people who have read Mahabharata, they know that Kurus are a branch of the Bharatas. So we have the Kuru lineage emerging from the Bharata lineage. But in the Mahabharata, in the Rigveda, we also came to know that there is another lineage called Tritsus, which is shown here. Tritsu lineage is another, you can say, yeah, this Tritsu lineage. This is another similar, very famous Bharata lineage. So just like Kuru is very famous in the Mahabharata, the Tritsus are very famous in Rigveda as another Bharata lineage. And there is a third lineage, the Kushika. Kushikas are also like another Bharata lineage. So there are total 3 Bharata branches: Kurus, Tritsus, and Kushikas. And for some, Vishwamitra is belonging to the Kushika lineage. That is why in the Rigveda, Vishwamitra is mentioned as Vishwamitra Kaushika, because he belonged to the Kushika lineage. And the King Sudas, who was the most famous king of Rigveda, and Vasishta and Vishwamitra were the priest of King Sudas. That Sudas, he belonged to the Tritsu lineage. So he's a Bharata king, but belonged to the sub-branch of the Tritsus. And another point is, the later period, the Tritsu got merged with 4 other clans, and total 5 clans, 5 royal lineages merged together to form the Panchala lineage, Panchalas. So most of the ancestor kings of the Panchalas are the Tritsus, but they have some other branches merged with them. Total 5 such clans together, they were called the Panchala. We will discuss them in the subsequent sessions. So for the time being, for the current session, we can just say that we have the Panchalas as the descendants of the Tritsus. So many of the ancestral kings of the Panchalas, like Sahadeva, Somaka, Sudas, Tivodasa, they are mentioned in the Rigveda Tritsu kings. So the relationship is that the later name of the Tritsus is Panchala, older name of Panchala is Tritsu. So that kind of a relationship, like similar to Vara Prithivya as the name, older name of Kurukshetra, and Kurukshetra being the later name of Vara Prithivya. So in the Rigveda, you don't see the name Kurukshetra, but you only see the name Vara Prithivya. And in Mahabharata or Ramayana, you only see Kurukshetra, whereas the name Vara Prithivya is, of course, it is also mentioned. If you some very rare in Manaparva of Mahabharata, that name is mentioned. But mostly the Kurukshetra is a very famous name. And similarly, in the Mahabharata, the name used is Panchala. The ancestors are Tritsus, and the descendants of Tritsu are Panchala. So older name of Tritsu will be Panchala. Later name of Tritsu will be Panchala. Older name of Panchala, Tritsu. So that kind of relationship. Now the Kuru is a very late, because youngest of all this, so it's not mentioned in Rigveda. So the Kuru become very famous only after the 10th mandala of the Rigveda. Even though the term Kuru is reflected in the late mandalas of the Rigveda as a verb, and there are some names like Kuru Sravana, etc., some king names. So Kuru, there is Rigveda have the kind of understanding about a new lineage, new kind of people called Kuru, but they are not directly mentioning the Kuru king, who was the founder, who was actually the person responsible for the name Kurukshetra. Not direct mentions are there, but indirect references are there in the Rigveda. So this is all about the fundamentals about the Rigvedic patterns, and but little more detail we go, and because we can see now how the kings, this Rigvedic patterns, Rigvedic kings are distributed. So there are this many number of major lineages, Tritsu Bharata lineage, where you have Bharata, Devavata, another ancient king, Srinjaya, then Vadhyashra, Nivodasa, Pradardana, Pijavana, Sudas, Sahadeva, Somaka. That lineage is the central lineage of Rigveda, and that leads to the Panchalas. So you can approximately say that the Rigveda is all about ancestors of the Panchalas, or mostly about them. They are very dominant in Rigveda, but Rigveda is not only about them. So Rigveda also talks about other Bharatas. So Vidadin, for example, kind of other Bharata kings like Vidadin is mentioned, Suhotra, Rijashva, Ajamila, Purumila, Riksha. Riksha is not directly mentioned, but partially mentioned. Then Riksha, then Jannu, Kushika, all these people are mentioned. And there is another king called Devashravas. He is also mentioned. So these people are not, okay, Devashravas is part of Tritsu Bharata, sorry. So you have, apart from the Tritsu Bharata dominant lineage, it also mentioned about other Bharatas, like Vidatin, Subhotra, then Ajamila, all this. Then Jannu and Kushika, they are Kushikas actually. The Kushika, and from Kushikas, the Gadhin and then Vishwamitra are part of the Kushika lineage. And in Ajamala had two sons. These sons are there, Riksha and Jannu. From Riksha, the Samvarana is born. And Samvarana also not directly mentioned in Rigveda, but there is a reference where he is indicated as the Puru of enemy of Sudas, the Puru of scornful speech. That is a Puru who became opposed to Sudas. So that way, indirectly, Samvarana is mentioned. And what is the significance of Samvarana? Samvarana is actually the ancestor of Kuru, the real Kuru who is mentioned in Mahabharata. So the red color I mentioned, because the red color I am indicated because they are not present in Rigveda, but they are present in Mahabharata. But indirect presence are there, but not direct presence in Rigveda. So there is Kuru, then Kuru's descendant Pradipa. So this information you get from Mahabharata, but not direct mention in the Rigveda. But of course, Pradipa's son Devapi and Santanu are mentioned in Rigveda. And Kuru, even though Kuru is not mentioned, there is a king named Kurusravana mentioned in the Rigveda, who belongs to another lineage. But the name Kurusravana is used for this particular lineage. I will mention about this lineage. So it is this Trikshi lineage. So anyway, the names are confusing because this is Tritsu, but they are Bharatas, but Trikshis are Ikshvakus. So the entire lineage, this is Chandravamsha, this is Suryavamsha. So in the Chandravamsha Bharata, there is Tritsu, and in Suryavamsha Ikshvaku, there is a Trikshi lineage. And in that Trikshi lineage, some kings are mentioned in the Rigveda, the Manthada, that is a name of a king, very ancient king, Manthada, and Mandata's descendants Purugutsa and Trasadasya. Trasadasya is very famous in Rigveda. And Trasadasya's descendant Trivrishan and Trayaruna. And Trayaruna's descendant Purushravana. So you may be thinking, what is this overlap all about? There is an overlap, like this red color box and this particular blue color box are overlapped. So this is because there was a kind of alliance between the Ikshwakus and this particular branch of the Bharatas, the Samvarna branch of the Bharatas. And this alliance between the Ikshwakus and the Bharatas at a certain generation, that resulted in the Kuru lineage. So that is why you have the names like Kurusravana coming in the Trishti Ikshwaku lineage, but still they are related to the Kurus. So the Kuru lineage emerged because of the merger of these two lineages. The Samvarna Bharatas and the Trikshi Ikshwaku lineage merged together and they formed the Kuru lineage. And from that Kuru lineage, you have got Pradipa, Devapi, and Shantanu. And these Devapi and Shantanu directly mentioned in the Rigveda. So that is how it has come about. And then you have a very important another lineage called Parthava lineage. So Parthava lineage, how it is, there is a king called Prithu, and from there the king called Chayamana. And from Chayamana you have Abhyaviritin Chayamana. He was a contemporary of Srinjaya, and they were cooperating each other in the early Ṛgvedic period. In the 6th Mandala period, they were having a kind of a cooperation. They were chasing common enemies, etc. in the early Ṛgvedic period. But somewhat close to the third or 7th Mandala, they started becoming enemies. The friendship got broken somehow. These people started distancing each other, the Parthavas and the Tritsu Bharatas. And during the period of Sudas, he was directly opposed to the Kavi Chayamana, and there was a battle between them. In that battle is the battle of the 10 kings, or Dasharajana battle, in which Kavi Chayamana tried to defeat King Sudas by allying with many other kings. So total 10 kings joined together and fought Sudas. But Sudas was very powerful. He defeated Kavi Chayamana and all the 10 kings. And among the 10 kings, one of them was Samvarna, that is the Puru of scornful speech. He was opposed to Sudas. So this Samvarna, or otherwise Puru, as well as Kavi Chayamana, and then 8 other clans joined together and fought Sudas. But Sudas defeated them, so they spread to further westward. They started living in Sindhu River. That was considered as a border of the Ṛgvedic region at that period. It is far away region. It was considered as very far away region. The Sindhu River that is flowing currently in Pakistan. And Sudas was living in the Haryana. He was the ruler ruling in Haryana, like Saraswati, between Saraswati and Drishatwati River. And with the support of Vasishtha as his priest, he has with the support of Vishwamitra as his priest, Sudas expanded up to Vipasuditri River, that is Bias Satluj River in Punjab, the confluence of Bias Satluj River. And after that Vishwamitra went away. I mean, stopped being the advisor of Sudas. So Vishwamitra basically went eastwards to defeat the kingdoms like Kikada to the east of Ganga. At that time, Vasishtha became the priest of Sudas, and then Sudas expanded up to Parushni River, which is called the Ravi River, or the India-Pakistan border river. So this Dasharajana battle, very interesting. It was fought on the India-Pakistan border along the Parushni River. And this Samvarna was expelled from the kingdom of Sudas. So he was thrown away from Varaprithivya. He has to flee to the west, cross Parushni River, and live in the Asikni River, which is the Chenab River, to the west of Parushni, or to the west of Ravi River. So Samvarna got pushed away from the Varaprithivya. He was living as basically living as a fugitive, or finding a new territory along the Asikni River, established there, and got associated with the Kavi Chayamana living there. So basically, the Asikni River is also known as the Danava River, because these people are all Danavas. Kavi Chayamana is, you may be familiar in the, if I tell the name, Kavya. So in the Mahabharata, Ramayana, Puranas, you know Kavya. There is a name called Kavya. It is a synonym of Shukracharya, Kavi Usanas. So that's the same person. So the Shukracharya, which you are seeing in the Itihasa Puranas, is actually a kind of rendering of Kavi Chayamana, who was an ancient king who fought the Dasharajna battle against Sudas and got defeated. So that is the Kavi Chayamana. So from that Kavi, there is a dynasty name. That from that dynasty, that name Kavya emerged. And Kavya is a synonym of Shukracharya, Bhargava Shukracharya. So that is how all the Itihasa Puranas are connected with some ancient historical events happened in the Ṛgvedic period, early Ṛgvedic period. So Kavi Chayamana and Samvarna, Bharata, Arshya, all these people were part of the Dasharajna battle and fought Sudas, but got defeated. So after the defeat of Samvarna and Kavi Chayamana and some 8 other clans who fought Sudas at the battle at Parishni, the Battle of Parishni, or the battle on the India-Pakistan border, which is also called the Dasharajna battle. They fled. They again fled to the west. And when they fled west, Samvarna started living on the Sindhu river, and which is also the confluence of Sindhu and Sarayu river. Sarayu, not to be confused with the river in the Uttar Pradesh, which is the eastern Sarayu, but this is a western Sarayu river, which is a tributary of Sindhu river. So this is now currently in Pakistan, and the river name currently is called Haro River, somewhere in the Pakistan. So in this between, when Samvarna was living in this region, and the Sarayu river was the territory of the Trikshi Ikshvakus, the western Ikshvakus. The Ikshvakus themselves, they have western and eastern branches. So western Ikshvakus were living in the western Sarayu, and eastern Ikshvakus, I mean, as a result of later migration, they lived the eastern Sarayu. So the Samvarna who fled to the west, he lived in the Sindhu Sarayu region, which is a territory of the Ikshvakus, that is the Trikshis. And because of that, they were living together there, because Samvarna got asylum in the Trikshi Ikshvaku territory. And also was there as his friend. There they got allied together. Their alliance formed, and they married, intermarriages, etc. occurred. And Vasishta was also the priest of Sudas. He left Sudas at that time and associated with Samvarna, and he was the person who is architect of the alliance between the Samvarna Bharatas and the Trikshi Ikshvakus. And as a result of this alliance, the Kuru lineage is formed. And the Kuru lineage slowly migrated, returned back to the Vara Prithvi. And that time, this Trikshi lineage declined. Because after Sudha, Sahadeva, after Sahadeva, Somaka. After Somaka, there was no great king. There is no big king in the Trikshi lineage. They declined, basically. So while the decline period, the Kuru came back to Vara Prithvi and renamed the region as Kurukshetra. And that is how they starting from that point onwards, the name Kurukshetra become active. That Kuru was the person who named it Kurukshetra. And before that, it was known as Vara Prithvi. And that is the name recorded in the Ṛgveda.